Twins left. Check zone. Check zone. All right, we're going to get Brown. 570. Wide curl on 2.
4-3 stab smash strong. Open cannon Mike Pop.
Hello and welcome to In the Huddle. I'm your host, JT Thomas, broadcasting live from Saberton Station every Wednesday from 6 to 7. And if you don't catch me here, make sure you check out thedpost.com. Look under the football section. I'll be there. Joining me this evening, Alex. I better keep going.
Shook.
No. Alex Shook from.
It's the third week I've been here. You still got my name down yet.
And you know what happened was I called another Alex before I came up. But Alex Shook, 1987 to 1991. And joining me for the first time is Gary Thompson, 1996 to 1999. I got to give the audience a little history on Gary. Gary and I are both from Florida, but Gary is on one of the best Mountaineer teams in a long time, the 1996 team. He played with guys like Aaron Beasley, Mike Logan, Van Washington, Charles Emmanuel. One of the best defensive secondary in Mountaineer history. Gentlemen, let's go ahead and get this thing started so I won't mess up anymore.
All right.
Let's break the huddle. Guys, we are here to review WVU versus Liberty. Liberty out of the Big South Conference, coached by Coach Turner Gill. I have to say, guys, the Mountaineers finished up well this year against Liberty with a 41-17 victory. Let's talk about what happened in regard to the Mountaineers starting off with Liberty this past weekend. Alex, what do you think about the game?
I thought we looked a little bit flat coming out. The defense didn't have the crisp, the pop that they had in that first game. But, overall, we controlled the game 41-17, a resounding win. When you're not playing your best football and you can still score 41 points, hold the other team less than 20 points, that's a pretty good outing. And I think it could have went a little bit differently. That team had an All-American field goal kicker who missed, 2-3 field goals early on, and they had an option on a 4th and 1 that looks like if they hit that pitch, it probably goes for a touchdown. So it could have been a little bit closer than it was, but good teams find a way to make the ball bounce their way and get some breaks. So hopefully that's going to be the case going forward.
Absolutely. What do you think about the Mountaineers and the Liberty Flame?
Well, first off, this is my first time being here, so I had the opportunity to be taking into account the first game of the season and the game with Liberty. And so far, what I've seen from the Mountaineers, I think I feel the same way Alex does about it. I feel like we're still trying to find our way as a team to figure out who we are. It seems as though we've played two, what I would say, lower-matched opponents. And, some things that I've looked at is the offensive line, our sort of dominance over the game. I feel like these are two teams we should have dominated. And even though we've put 40-plus points on the board 2 weeks in a row, I feel like we could have hit the 60s on both games. So I'm still watching to see what the Mountaineers are going to do this season. I am a fan. I am an alumni. I love the Mountaineers. I just want to see them do the best that they can.
Gary, one thing, and Alex, one thing that we hear a lot about our Mountaineers is that when we play opponents for those subdivisions, that we tend to play down the teams. I mean, week in and week out, we kind of hear that, and we worry about that going in. I thought our defense showed very well our first game, but against Liberty, Alex, I mean, as you just mentioned, they had guys, DJ Abner, who was a running back in that division that was putting up some. Although the offense didn't rush the ball well against us, under 100 yards, those guys came to play. And what does that say about our defense?
I think it was a dreary day, kind of a dreary opponent. By the way, we didn't play those kinds of teams, FCS teams, when I played. I don't know. Maybe you all started that trend. I think it's a bad idea. I don't like playing those teams because, they're up for you and you're not necessarily up for them. But, we haven't dominated these first two games the way I would have liked to have dominated, but we're scoring 40 points. We're beating teams soundly. And like I say, hopefully that portends well for things to come in the future.
One thing, I wouldn't call it a criticism. One thing that I noticed, and we talked about it last week in terms of what Skylar Howard brings to the team. He can run the ball, he can pass the ball. Mm-hmm. However, that running can be a little dangerous. What do you think about Howard doing all that running this past game?
Well, my understanding is that he's the type of quarterback that needs to have to feel that he's in the game. So getting hit a few times, or maybe even someone knocking him around and getting hit on his back on an incomplete pass, is something that kind of makes him feel alive. Right now, you never want your starting quarterback to go out there and do anything that's going to endanger the team. So for right now, he's young. He seems to be holding up okay. I say let him do it. But I would, from a coaching standpoint, I wouldn't dial up any called runs.
Right. The deal about Skyler, I think we've heard it at the beginning of the season that he wants to be the field general on that field. When you have a guy like that, similar to Pat White, he wants the ball in his hands. He wants to be able to control the game. However, this young guy that we have, Javon Durant, second game out, he comes out and he scores another touchdown. Kids being talked about in the Big 12 as one of the newcomers in the Big 12. What do you think about Javon Durant for the Mountaineers?
I think it looks like he's developing some consistency. He didn't have the big down the field plays like he had in that first game, but he took what the defense gave him, caught a couple nice little screens, advanced the ball, got up the field quick, what you want to see out of a receiver in that situation. There's been some complaints that he's not blocking. I think the coach called him out as being a little bit soft, so hopefully he'll take that challenge to heart. Obviously a very, very talented kid. He probably didn't do a whole lot of blocking in high school. I'm sure he was the star receiver, and you want to be a complete receiver at this level, you got to be able to block.
As a true freshman, I guess he's learning all that. You know what I mean? Comes out of Miramar High School.
That's right.
From South Florida kid,
That's right.
speedster. He wants the ball, and I agree with you. He got to learn how to block. But he's a guy. If you put him out there, he'll make some things happen.
The one thing that you can't account for is being a playmaker. The other thing I think is important in being a very good athlete and even a great athlete is your confidence. Not being cocky, but just being confident in what you can do. When you've got a young guy that is especially confident in his ability, then I believe that it's a good time to allow him to do the things that he does well while taking those times at certain periods in practice and teaching him the things that he doesn't do so well and let him hone his skills. But you don't want to take the confidence away from a young player that's got all the other intangibles.
And that's what's going to be critical for all of the young receivers that are developing for the Mountaineers. D'Keil Shorts, Shelton Gibson. What about Shelton Gibson and his 52-yard touchdown after one of those short delayed passes? What do you do? When you got a bunch of guys like that, that got talent, it's only a matter of time before they figure it out and become a complete athlete. And I think we'll get that with all four of these receivers.
Yeah, it was nice to see him break loose on that again. He caught that ball. He had three guys around him and ran by him like he's standing still. He obviously has that world-class speed, and hopefully he's going to keep developing and become the complete receiver on the other side to complement Javon.
Now, what do you think about, when people talk about our offense, they like to use the phrase air raid offense. We played a 4-3. That defense was more so a 4-3 defense. Right. Kind of what we're going to see in the Big 12. Are we prepared? Are we going to be able to play in the Big 12 and start some of these, not necessarily the Big 12, in the next 2 weeks against Maryland? Are we going to be ready and being able to do what we need to do in terms of moving the ball down the field?
No matter who you are as a fan and what you followed from Coach Holgerson over the last few years, what you can say is that we can put points on the board. We can move the ball, and I don't see that be anything different this year with him at the helm. I do think that we need to get the offensive line a little bit more physical when we're playing teams like Liberty, when we're playing Georgia Southern. I'd like to see all backs average about 5 yards a carry. I think that's the biggest difference between our league and theirs is at the line of scrimmage. So I think we can be a little bit more dominant on the offensive line. Obviously, as you said, we have receivers that will eventually just work that out. You'll find out who will be the stud amongst those. Back to Gibson, he's been the guy that I've been interested in watching this year as the other guys have left. So I think we'll be fine. I think as we continue in the season, we'll just have to see how physical our line is going to be, because that's going to be the most important part.
Speaking of that line, guys, our running game in terms of where we were last year and where we are now, I think last year being on the show, I talked about how we averaged nearly scoring 80% of the time on that first drive. This year, our key running back, Russell Shell, hadn't had very many carries currently right now. This past game window, Smallwood rushed for 15 times for 90 yards. Are we going to get to where we get Russell Shell or either a key runner for our offense this year?
I think that's going to be up to Russell. I know he has the talent. He showed it at Pitt when he was a true freshman. He had a dominant game against a good Virginia Tech team, and he showed it at times last year, and I keep waiting for him to be that dominant guy that can take over ball games. I think Mountaineer fans are used to having that big-time running back. You played with Amos Zaraway, for example. I mean, you could put the game on his shoulders, and he would control the game. Going back, Adrian Morrell and A.B. Brown, all those guys. We had guys that the running backs carried the football team, and we really don't seem to have that guy yet. I haven't seen him yet on this team. I think everybody was hoping that Russell would be that guy, but something's just not clicking for him right now. He seems like his timing's a little bit off, and the line certainly hasn't been dominant. It hasn't been blowing teams away, but right now it looks like Wendell Smallwood's our most complete back.
Right, and I guess the only thing that I wouldn't say the only thing, the thing that helps us is you got Skylar Howard. It becomes the third option for us. So we're either going to pass the ball, we're either going to run the ball with one of those backs, or we let Skylar get in the open field and play a little football.
My feeling on the running back situation is that we have two capable running backs. I think from a fan standpoint, and having seen more of Shell in the previous years, you do wish that he was performing a little bit better. I don't know, as you said, if it's just a step off. It may be something that is due to fatigue from camp. It could be the offensive line and maybe getting used to the way that those guys blocking and the timing. The other part is if you have two capable backs, if you have to do it running back by committee, I don't mind as long as we're getting the yards and we're averaging big numbers. And I think as long as we can continue to control the ground game, and if we do that within the Big 12, I think we'll still do well.
That's the concern, is that I don't think our running game has been dominant yet against two inferior opponents. Are we going to be able to do this against the Oklahomas, the Texas, Oklahoma State? Because we're going to be looking at definitely a different caliber athlete on the other side of the ball when we get into that league play.
I agree, and we're going to get right back into that because we're going to start talking about the red zone in a minute. But before that, we got a trivia question. It's something that we started new on the show, and we want to ask you fans, this trivia question. What 2 seasons did the Mountaineers go undefeated in the regular season? What 2 seasons did the Mountaineers go undefeated in the regular season? Before we answer, and I got a hand up here, you'll win this shirt here. You'll win this shirt here. What 2 seasons did the Mountaineers? Oh, I got a second hand up there. I'm sorry, you ain't correct, sir. All righty. 88, 1994, not 94. I need one more. I'll give you another shot. You're close. Both of you guys are close. Go ahead and give me the answer, sir. 88 and 1993 were the 2 seasons that the Mountaineers had back-to-back seasons. Now, I want to make sure that you guys come down here every Wednesday at Surbiton Station to make sure you come here and watch us. We'll be here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. And if you don't catch me here, make sure you check me out on thedepost.com. We're going to have these trivia questions and giveaways every time we come here on these Wednesdays, so make sure you stop down and check us out. I got football on the brain today, guys. I want to talk about the Mountaineers, and as Alex just left off, I want to start talking a little bit more about our offense. Red zone. We talked about that. We finished the show last week talking about how important it was for us to be effective in the red zone. Last week we came out, I think early on the first 2 drives, we came away with field goals. What do we got to do to score in the red zone, Alex?
I think we have to dominate up front. That's always where it starts and where it ends. If your offensive line can push the defensive line back, you're going to score in the red zone, and it doesn't appear that we've done that. I think we've deliberately tried to line them up, let them know, hey, here we come, we're going to run the ball at you, to be able to push these lesser opponents around and give our offensive line some confidence, and I just don't think it's happened yet. I don't know if we're missing assignments, if we're not that good up front, or it's just going to take some time for these guys to develop. I think the story's still out on that.
Gary, what do you think about the red zone? What do we got to do to be successful?
I think football is fullbacks, linebackers, and tight ends. You strap up and you put the ball in the end zone. 3rd and short, 1st and goal, 3rd and goal. You line up, and especially over a smaller team like this, you just dominate the line of scrimmage and show them that they don't belong on the field with you.
Now, one thing that I will brag about, before we left, I said this. I said, when we get in the red zone, we need to do the old boot and waggle. And I think we actually got one of those in, and we scored a touchdown pass.
Wellman.
Exactly. And I think you do that. The reason why I think you do that, because You got to have that quarterback who's the smaller stature guy. He got to try to get outside so he can see everything. And as I mentioned before, Skylar's, with Skylar, that gives us 3 options.
That's right.
With the opportunity to boot out or something, fake that dive in, and get that quarterback outside throwing or running, gives us more options to score. So coaches, I like that play. Stick with the boot and waggle when we get in those red zone. We're going to score more times than you think. So guys, that's where I am in the red zone. Let's talk about something that you and I both know about a little bit, and that's defense.
That's right.
Gary and I both played. Gary played DB. I played linebacker. Alex may look like a linebacker right now, but he's an offensive guy. But Alex, let's talk about defense. The Mountaineers tried and tested in terms of, we've talked about this in terms of being one of the better defenses we had in a long time. Coach Hoganson kind of holds his hat out on the defense. How did defense perform this past weekend against the Liberty Flame?
I mean, I'll give him a C. It wasn't awful, but it didn't appear that they came out with the emotion, the enthusiasm that we saw in the first game, and certainly that we're going to need going forward against all these potent offenses we're going to face in the Big 12. I thought Al-Rashid, Benton did a great job filling in for Barber. It's sad to see Barber not be able to play. I guess they were trying to rest him, make sure he's going to be ready for the Maryland game. But it was nice to see us have some depth that we haven't had the last couple of years. We have a young guy come in like Benton, perform really well, had 7 or 8 tackles, including 1 for a loss. So I think he was probably the highlight of the defense as far as I was concerned.
What do you think about that defense, Gary?
Well, I'm glad to see someone just be honest and tell the truth about what happened. I like the grade of a C. And it's not that our defense is bad. I mean, we've got great guys on our defense. You can't talk enough about them in the secondary and in the linebacking core. I think as a group they play well. The issue is, again, the competition that we've played the last 2 weeks. And so when you play the caliber of teams that we've played the last 2 weeks, I hated to see the 60-yard pass late in the game. That was something that I felt like if you want to say you're a dominant team, then you close and you finish the game out. Now, some of that does mean substitutes coming in and they're getting their feet wet, and I understand some mistakes are going to be made. But if you want to have a great team like some of the past defensive teams that we've had here, you have to finish it out, and that's on with the first and the second team guys. So I think they still got a way to go. I think they have some consistency. And I think that the guys are playing well together right now, but still a way to go.
They announced the Maryland game as a sellout. It's going to be a 3 o'clock game, a rivalry game. I think we're going to see another defense in a couple weeks when Maryland steps onto the field.
Right, and let me do this. Let me give credit to the Liberty Flame too. I think we mentioned this last week. Josh Woodrum and DJ Abner and Desmond Rice and that Peterson kid. I think we said here and we talked about how good these guys are. These guys are good athletes. Now, the Mountaineers, our defense, we were solid in terms of stopping that run game. We got dinged here and there a little bit in the passing game, but for the most part, we played pretty solid. However, we want to get on and off the field. We cannot be hanging around with a lesser opponent. And I think that's something in terms of pride and leadership that we got to learn here real soon. And I'm glad it's happening now, opposed to when we get up on our border rivalry with Maryland.
This is the positive thing about playing some of these lower caliber teams in the beginning of the season. You get to work out the kinks. You get to figure out who's going to lead, who's going to be the defensive leader, who's going to be the leader of the wide receiver core, how our quarterback's going to figure out. So this gives us an opportunity. But I believe that you play against teams like Maryland, even if you don't play them every year. You play against Virginia Tech, you play against Pitt. Those are the teams that show up and said, okay, we remember you from last time. You play tough football. We don't like you very much, so we're going to strap up our helmets. We're going to make everything just a little bit tighter for you, and we're going to find out what you're made of. And I think this next game we'll get a chance to see what our offensive line is made of. We'll get a chance to see what our defense is made of, because Maryland's going to have athletes also. Guys from that Baltimore, D.C. area going to be on that team, and those guys are going to have a little shake and bake, some speed with them, and so we'll finally get a test.
You know, one thing that we did see, I thought our defensive line played decent. But I think it kind of showed without having Barber in that middle that we were a little susceptible. Al-Rashid Bennett, I thought he did a great job. He had 7 tackles in the game. He tied with Nick Kidakowski. Came out playing fantastic ball in terms of when you think about from the 3 levels: defensive line, linebackers, and secondary. I think the trouble we got into once they started doing play fakes or play action fakes on it, kind of hurt us in the secondary because that play action sucked us up a little bit, and the young guys came up and they got behind us. But for the most part, I thought we did pretty well. Let me ask you this, guys: what kept Liberty in that first half of that game? What kept them in the game?
Just pure adrenaline. You know, the last time they were here, things were a little bit closer than they needed to be. And, you know, you get a team and they know they're going to be playing a bigger caliber team, and they want to prove who they are. They want to show you. So some of that's just adrenaline. Those guys, I think, maybe have been a little bit better conditioned to go for longer periods of time and just to keep some of that adrenaline up. But you know, I think it's just purely adrenaline and some of maybe the mistakes that we made. But, you know, I still don't expect this to be something that bothers late in the year.
Because we're kicking field goals in the red zone. Yeah, that's a big win to that Liberty defense when we go down there, drive right down the field, and then they stuff us and make us kick a field goal. And I think that happened the first 2 out of the first 3 drives, something like that. So that gives that team some confidence that they can stay with us, too, to carry on. From the adrenaline that they're obviously riding high on. But when we can't score in the red zone, like that, can't score touchdowns, that allows those teams to hang around, and we need to get that turned around.
Right. I agree with that. Guys, so, you know, as I said earlier, the secondary is kind of being a defense per se. It's been our strong point. Was our secondary tested? I mean, last week I think I talked about this being one of the, you know, best secondaries in a long time. Was this secondary tested? I mean, was this the barometer for us in terms of how we're going to play the secondary?
Well, in order for you to ask that question, we got to play better athletes. And in order for anyone to say that this secondary is up there with some of the better secondaries that have been here at Mountaineer Field, then you have to be tested. And so I can't say that with the first 2 games. I'm not going to be able to say that even after the 3rd game. I want to look at the body of work. I do give them some props for being a team that, at least for what it's starting to look like the last 2 years, showing up all the time and consistent. And so that's going to matter. But, you know, and once we're in the BCS championship series and the playoffs, you know, then I want to talk about that and actually being tested, because the guys that I'm thinking of, I've seen those guys tested, and then it didn't look like much of a test because they dominated so well.
The Georgia team couldn't throw the ball at all.
Right.
Now this team is a little bit different, and that receiver is probably a pro prospect. That quarterback's a pro prospect. He's the leading active passer in terms of yards. So they've been around, they've thrown the ball, and they showed they can play at that level. So, you know, it was a test, but it's nothing like what we're going to face throughout the balance of the season when we play Oklahoma State, that have the kind of athletes that, you know, they're going to be throughout this conference.
And what I thought, I think early on, you know, I wouldn't say I compared these guys, but I did mention them in the same sentence as Mike Logan, Aaron Beasley, as I said earlier. These guys have potential. I really like it. You know, you got young guys at the safety, the Henry kid. I think he's gonna be solid. You know, veteran corners on the side with Worley and Chestnut. You know, I think they're gonna be good. I mean, again, I think this is the best we've seen somebody throw the ball. And again, this Woodruff kid was not a slouch, Alex. The kid can throw the football, and he throw the ball around a little bit. So, you know, guys, I'm not going to give you a bad grade, and I have to agree with the C. You know, but I guess going into the Maryland game or games coming up, you know, as we always do, try to get better each weekend and week out. Guys, let's get into top performers. Each week we come out and then we ask our panel to talk about guys who were top performers. Who would be your top performer on offense this week, Alex?
I would say it'd have to be Skylar Howard, 21 to 26. He's developing a rhythm, a consistency. Had a nice long scramble there, 30-some yards to pick up a big first down. Distributed the ball, took what the defense gave him. Those short passes worked out well for Durant and Shelton Gibson. And it was nice to see him get the keel shorts, those passes over the middle. I thought he threw some nice balls into pretty tight coverage, the kind of passes he's going to have to be able to make in the Big 12 games in order for us to be successful. So, you know, I thought Howard did a good job. And the most important thing, and this is being something talking about developing consistency with him, is he hadn't turned the ball over yet. You know, we don't have any fumbles out of his running game. He's protected the ball with the passing game. He's had 0 turnovers in the last 2 games. I think that's pretty impressive with what we ask our quarterbacks to do.
I agree with that. What do we think?
Spoken like a true offensive guy. I have to agree with you. The Skylar Howard player, key player of the game. I'm going to just say that, I mean, you summed it up well. My only sort of facet of the game that I'm going to keep an eye on is the offensive line, and that's probably going to be something that I'll look at maybe the next few weeks to see how we move forward.
Guys, I think we got the trifecta here. I mean, I think Skylar did a great job managing the game. He showed his leadership ability. He showed he can run. He tossed the ball around pretty well. One thing I did notice that we're starting to throw those out routes again. And I think, we got to continue to throw the ball down the field because we got kids who can go out there and get it. So I agree with you guys and say Skylar would be also my offensive player of the game. So with offense, we got to pair it up and say who'd be our defensive guy of the game.
That's a tough one. I think Kowalski is the most consistent player. I think he's a playmaker for us. I think his name doesn't get called enough. And for me, he's going to be my player of the game. I just like the way that he plays football, and I like the way that he shows up every week.
Yeah, I like seeing Al-Rashid Benton. Kwiatkowski played fantastic too. I'd like to see Al-Rashid Benton come in, show that we have some depth at that position, that he's going to be a solid performer, anywhere behind any of those 3 spots if the linebacker goes down. And it's a guy that might work his way into the rotation a little bit with the way he played last Saturday.
And I got written down Al-Rashid Bennett because I think when you get a guy coming off the bench, a guy who is not deemed a starter or in the rotation. In fact, there's a lot of depth at linebacker. I thought Al-Rashid Bennett did a great job of coming in and providing that confidence in terms of being able to be a run stop and be effective in the pass. I thought Al-Rashid Bennett did a great job. Guys, we're going to stop again. And I want to remind you to make sure that you come check us out every Wednesday from 6 to 7 here at the Suburban Station. And if you don't catch us here, you can check us out at thedeeppost.com. Look under the football section. You'll always get me there. I have another trivia question that I want to give you. So pay very close attention to this one, guys. Very close attention. And this is, when I was in school, I always liked those multiple choice answers. So I'm going to give you a multiple choice one here this time. What was the final score of the game? A, 4-18, 41-17, or 14-71. All right, this guy is quick on the handle. All right, thank you. You won that trivia. We'll have something for you. We usually have a cozy. Do I have them? Oh, I do have them. They're here. I'll get them to you. We got them here. Oh, I have them here. I didn't see this here. We have these cozies that we give away, and I'd like to make sure you get one of these here. We'll give them out every week. So make sure you come down here. We'll be here. We're just waiting on you. Come check us out. Guys, again, I got football on my brain. I'm just thinking about, how we played and how we performed. But let's get into upcoming games. Maryland game. There's a lot to be said about what happens when we play Maryland, what it means to our Mountaineer club. This game has typically been our bellwether game. Last year we came home with a victory, but it was tight. Alex, what do we see moving forward with Maryland?
Well, that's a good question because they're going to have a new quarterback that we haven't seen yet this year. They're going to be playing South Florida this Saturday, so maybe we'll learn a little bit about what this quarterback's going to be. I guess they demoted the guy that started the first couple games to third string. They got absolutely hammered by Bowling Green, who, they're probably not a bad team, but you don't expect to see Bowling Green putting 50-some points on a Maryland football team. So it's really kind of a mystery what's going on with this Maryland team. I would have thought this point into Randy Edsall, I had respect for him as a coach at UConn. He did good things with that program, that he would make Maryland a contender in the ACC, and now they're in the Big Ten, so who the heck knows. But it's a little bit of a surprise to see them in that much disarray and get beat that bad by a MAC team.
Right. Let me just drop a little bit of science on you in terms of that Bowling Green team. They were runners-up in the MAC last year. They played for the championship game, so they were a good team for the MAC. But as you just mentioned, it was a very pleasant surprise to me for them to beat Maryland. What do you think about Maryland, Gary?
you know, that's a tough loss last week. And I think that when you have a good coaching staff, the one thing that they're going to do is be prepared. I expect they're going to have a hard week of practice. They're going to be talking about technique. They're going to be talking about the mistakes that they made. Anything that could put more points on the board or any chances that were missed to make a turnover. So I suspect that when they come into this game with us, that they're going to be hard-nosed. They're going to be tough. They're going to be disciplined, and they're going to be ready to play football. And I think it's going to be indicative of the games that we've seen Maryland in the past, from the times that you played, I played, Alex played. We're going to see a pretty tough team that is going to be physical and be ready to sort of redeem some of their respect of what happened last week.
You know, one thing that I think about in terms, I mean, we started off with this. You know, they went and they dominated Richmond. All right, then
Not really. I mean, it was a pretty close ball game in the first half.
Okay.
That was nip and tuck for a better part of that game. They stretched it out a little bit in the second half.
So they beat Richmond, and then they come down, and not saying that they saw it as a lesser opponent, but did they take Bowling Green lightly? You know,
They won't if they play them again.
But that's what we were afraid of the Mountaineers potentially doing. Being successful in their first game, then coming back during the second game, not taking, I couldn't say if they're taking their opponent lightly or not, but not being effective enough to be successful for their second game. What do we think about what happened in that Maryland game?
Well, you know, I'm going to say that this is now the downside of playing these games. I talked about earlier the upside to playing these games so you can get some of the kinks worked out so that you can sort of get your timing down. Now, from the Maryland standpoint, and at times maybe with us in years past, this is the flip side to playing those two easy games or a lesser opponent in the beginning. That becomes your caliber of play. That becomes your competition. That becomes your level. That's what you know. That's what you know how to push yourself, and that's your measuring stick. And so you have to get back to whatever you want, whatever your coaching staff has been teaching to make you a good team, a tough team, a physical team. You have to go back to camp and get some of that toughness and that readiness for the season in order to go into the next game. So these type of games here, I've never been a real big fan of them, and I just think that Maryland just became a victim of one of those teams.
That's the good part about our game, is that we didn't play a very good game and we won 41-17. Maryland didn't play a good game and they demoted their quarterback to third string. They're talking about firing the coach, and and Bowling Green scored 58 points on them.
Right. You know what? The one thing that I do realize about this Maryland game, and we used to say this about Virginia Tech, we used to say this about Miami, and we certainly say this about Pitt. This game has become a border rivalry force. And both of these teams are going to get up for this game.
That's
right. I don't think Maryland lays down coming into Morgantown and looking to get beat by the Mountaineers. I think they regroup and they come out and give us our best shot. So what do we have to do in terms of preparing for Maryland?
I think we got to continue to improve the running game. That Maryland's going to challenge us up front. They're going to try and make us one dimension. I say this every week, but we got to be able to run the ball and run the ball with more authority than we've run the ball up to this point, because we can't get Skylar Howard hit 10 times a game. Well, I don't want to see him carrying the ball in double digits and getting him hit like that. And I didn't like to see him get hit like that against this last team we played, Liberty. I didn't think it makes sense. We got to improve on the offensive line, become a little more dominant running the ball, and continue to hit our outside guys who are going to be probably the best athletes on the field against most of the teams that we play, at least from what I've seen so far. That these guys are fantastic, Gibson and Durante, and the speed that they have, they're going to be game breakers. So, we need to be able to keep consistent, get a little more consistent running the ball so that we can do what we do with our wide receivers.
What do you think, Gary?
Control the running game and basically control the line of scrimmage. If we do that on both sides of the ball, we have athletes, skilled athletes that can back up that offensive and defensive line play. We have the running backs, whether we do it by committee or someone steps up. We have the receivers that can do it. Skylar Howard, he's going to be a guy that can do it for us if he gets the time. And defensively, our second and third level is pretty doggone good. And so if we get those guys the chance to just make plays, be good secondary cover guys, allow Joseph to come up and make his hits, our linebackers will play well. I think if we just control the line of scrimmage, that we'll have a good team.
You know, one thing I think it comes down to too is this, in terms of Ray Etzel. He's played here in Morgantown before. I think he's telling his team he can beat the Mountaineers. He's done it before. I think this becomes a chess match between the two coaches, because both of them got talented athletes. I think when they come out, it'll be the coach who comes in with the best strategy, the team that has the most will and desire to go out there and win a football game. Now, one component that I think that's going to be a benefit to our group is our Mountaineer fans. I think when you got the Mountaineer fans behind you, and I'm sure we will, as you mentioned, Alex, this is a sold-out game. Mountaineer fans, make sure you get there and be the 12th man for our football team, because I'm sure it will be a bonus for us if we get them out. Do you think Maryland comes in and think they can throw against our secondary? That's one thing that's been in the back of my mind, because I look at Liberty and I say, well, they've thrown a through passes on the Mountaineer. That secondary may not be as strong as people think. Do you think they come in and try us in the secondary?
Well, I don't know. They're going to have a brand new quarterback. We'll probably find out a little bit about him Saturday because they play South Florida. And I believe Maryland's favored. Why, I have no idea. But we'll get to see what this guy can do against South Florida. I don't think that they would plan on coming in and throwing the ball 50 times against West Virginia's secondary. I think that'd be a mistake on Maryland's part. Etzel's always been a run-first kind of guy, and I don't think he's going to change his philosophy any in that regard. They're going to try to establish the running game, shorten the game, keep it close, try and get a big play out of their special teams. That Will Likely guy's fantastic returning punts. I don't know if he returns kicks too. I think he returned a punt on us last year for a touchdown. So I think they're going to want to shorten the game, run the ball, run the clock, and keep our dangerous wide receivers off the field as much as possible.
Okay, do they test our secondary, Gary?
You know, I'm not even sure what they're thinking about when it comes to their passing games, because there's so many things going on with their team right now. I think I won't blame any team for coming in and trying to make a few throws to kind of test and see how good we really are and what our secondary can really do. I don't think they're going to try to live and make it a game testing our secondary. I think that would be a mistake. But who knows? I mean, any team that's got enough heart to get on the field, I think they're going to have a quarterback that's going to want to see what it's like to throw against the top-notch secondary.
Well, as I kind of mentioned, and as I go through this, and I think about you mentioned Will Likely, right? One topic that I didn't discuss here earlier is our special teams. That might be the key to this game. Whoever controls special team or whoever is the most successful in the special team game. Last week, I mean, we didn't fumble any of the special teams, so I guess that's a bonus.
Well, we actually had a punt return that went forward, I think 19 yards. It was probably the most yards we've had on a punt return in a long time. That was a rarity to see one of our guys field the ball and go forward with it.
Right, and
KJ Dillon.
KJ Dillon, yes, yeah. So I think, special teams may play a role in this thing. I mean, it's happened before.
They're absolutely.
Well, it's such an important part of the game that I think a lot of people neglect. I think our punt game is fantastic, and it's so odd to see that we don't really field a lot of punt returns, unfortunately. But being a punt return that takes a lot of courage, and doesn't mean about being a big guy or being a fast guy. You need the right type of guy that's going to be able to stand back there, catch the ball, not let it hit the ground, and have guys maybe 2 or 3 yards away from him that are trying to take his head off. So I think we just got to get the right guy back there. But I still think we have the advantage on the special team.
O'Toole looked good, fantastic on his punts, man. He dropped a couple right there inside the 10-yard line or 5-yard line or so. I don't know what the heck was going on with his kickoffs. He kicked a couple sidewinders out of bounds, as ugly as kicks that I've ever seen. But overall, he did a fantastic job in the punt game, and I'm just tickled to death to see KJ Dillon back there. It looks like he has a little confidence. Did you ever do that? Were you a punt returner in your time?
No, only in high school, and I'll be honest, I was one of those guys that let the ball hit the ground a little bit too often.
I hear you. Hey, what I really like about our secondary, as you mentioned, I saw Lambert miss his first field goal in a long time. That was quite interesting. But to say that we see a problem with special teams, we're not there yet. I think I feel real good about us making that adjustment. I know that Coach Hoganson focused on that special teams unit personally this season. So again, I hope that special team pulls it together. Well, last year they were a factor. I mean, special team was a factor in us winning the Maryland game. last year. So
Lambert kicked the long field goal, and that likely guy returned the punt for a touchdown against us last year too, I think. So he's a dangerous guy, and we're going to have to be. I don't think we can kick away from him every time. We're going to have to play great against this guy because he's fantastic.
Right. I agree with that. Guys, I think we're going to move into asking questions at this point. And again, I want to continually just thank people for coming out, because this is what it's really about. We're going to turn the mic over a little bit and have our fans ask a few questions. And we'll do what we kind of do at work, when people ask us about the Mountaineers. We answer those questions. So if you would, let's find out who would want to ask us a few questions before we wrap it up.
I wanted to know who you thought was the best defensive player in Mountaineers history or offensive player.
Well, that's a great question.
Right.
Yeah. Offensive player, I'll comment on that. I'll let you all comment on the defensive player, but it'd probably be a guy that I played with in 87, 88, and 89, Major Harris. Definitely one of the most exciting college quarterbacks on any school, and really carried the season for us in 1988, the undefeated season, and had a fantastic year in 1989, and was a Heisman Trophy finalist, I think, and really one of the great dual threat college quarterbacks of all time, maybe a little bit before you guys' time. I don't know if you all saw him on TV or not, but he was really amazing. He was Pat White before there was a Pat White. It wasn't as fast as Pat White, but he had special skills, was strong as an ox, fast, could throw the ball, decisions, leader, great team guy, great leader, great fun guy to be around, and just an all-around great guy. So that'll be my pick for the all-time offensive player.
I'll give two. I think as a defensive guy, you couldn't sit at this table if you didn't say Sam Huff in terms of being one of the best defensive players in Mountaineer history. And then, when you sit back and you play for the Mountaineers, and I think on the wall we have Sam's name on that wall, and I'm so blessed to have my son playing with the Giants, and I know that he's in that ring of honor with the Giants. So Sam Huff would be my guy defensively. Now I will agree with that Major from my era in terms of when I watched football, when I knew a little bit about football, and I had the awesome pleasure playing with Major in 1997. Major and I both played for the West Virginia Lightning at the time. No, it was the West Virginia Rockets. And I watched Major run around, throw the ball, and I have to say, 10 years removed, almost 10 years removed from when he played, he was just as good as he was then than he was when he was playing in 88. So those would be my two guys, Sam Huff and Major Harris. Sam Huff for defense, Major Harris obviously for offense.
Well, I'm going to go political here, and I'm not going to really name anybody because I think it's too difficult. And I say that honestly simply because when you go back and you look at some of the Mountaineers that played here, I mean, how do you pick out of Sam Huff, Darryl Talley? How do you pick out of Aaron Beasley, Mike Logan? And even I had some great ones on my team, Barrett Green, Gary Stills, John Thornton. It's a lot of players who come through here that to say you have the best player of all time, it's relative because, you guys may say, well, it's my time, and I remember these guys, and I saw them firsthand. You happen to see Major firsthand, Alex happened to see other athletes and skill talents firsthand. In my opinion, maybe someone like maybe an Amos Zaraway or even a Dave Saunders. We all have practice stories about what we've seen these guys do. So it's real hard for me to say who's who, but I'm going to throw a name out there in terms of a player that I know that had a big impact on me in West Virginia. And before I knew anything about West Virginia football, there was a guy that played outside linebacker named Matt Tafoni. And he was one of the first people that I heard about West Virginia football. And during that, I believe it was 92, 93 years, he had some really good seasons. So he was the first person that actually drew my attention to West Virginia. Not saying that he's the greatest, but I'm saying that he was an impact player for someone coming up watching football.
He was a true freshman in 91, my senior year.
Yeah.
He played well for us that year, yeah.
You know the best thing that I enjoy about history in terms of Mountaineer history, YouTube. You can go to YouTube and see how, so I know what Sam Huff looked like. I think I maybe it was, I don't know, what was Sam Huff? Not sure. But, watching some of the old footage, gives you an opportunity to really.
I've still been trying to find a highlight of mine on YouTube. I can't find it.
So I was able to see some of those older guys play and really took a liking to it. So hopefully that answers your question. And no, go ahead.
Who do you think is the best pro to come out of WVU?
The best pro. Would you qualify it and say recent history or recent history? All right. That's even better. Who is the best pro to come out of Mountaineer, out of West Virginia in the most recent history?
Best? I mean, Mark Bulger had a great career. We got guys in the league right now, first round draft picks, Tavon Austin, Stedman Bailey, that their stories haven't been completely written yet. The defensive guy, the sack guy, what's his name? Plays for Bruce Irvin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he has a chance. He's played on a Super Bowl and championship team and played in another Super Bowl and runner-up. So you know, we've got a lot of guys out there that probably are deserving of that honor.
See, I'm more resolute in terms. I'm gonna tell you the guy who I like, and that's Darryl Talley. I like Darryl Talley in recent history, just early 80s.
82, I think he was.
Yeah, I just remember Darryl Talley being just the guy from the Giants, Bruce
Smith.
Bruce Smith type of guy. I mean, I just Darryl Talley. And in fact, he played with Bruce Smith. He's one of the guys from the Mountaineers that I just thought was an exceptional NFL player. So who's your guy, Gary?
I'm going to have to agree with you, JT. It was during the time I think I was just starting to discover football and starting to hear about the Mountaineers. I was a Miami guy, Florida State, just being where I grew up. But I have to tell you, I was still watching NFL football more than I was in the other level. And I remember the old Buffalo Bills teams. And I remember watching Darryl Talley and Bruce Smith. And he called my attention. I thought he was a great player. And then I learned he was a Mountaineer. So I have to say, for all-time greats in the NFL, I'm going to have to say it's Darryl Talley.
I would, and again, so we might be telling our age.
Played 4 Super Bowls.
We're young guys, so don't. So if you're older than what we are, don't be offended. We've seen Darryl Talley play on TV. In fact, both of us being from Miami. Well, he's from Miami. I'm from Fort Lauderdale. They played the Dolphins.
That's right. Unfortunately.
So we got a chance to firsthand see those. So those were. Did you say your? Yeah. You said your history. So with that being said, do we have any more questions for our panel? Yes, sir.
All right, I was wanting to talk about the uniforms. Should we be like Alabama and Penn State traditional, or should we keep trying to mimic Oregon and some of these other teams?
That's a good question. The question was about this uniform trend. Should we be the Mountaineers, the old Mountaineers, or the Mountaineers, or should we try to be like an Oregon or these other teams? I certainly got an answer for it. What do you think, Alex?
I like the traditional. When I say traditional, the uniforms that we had in the '80s that Coach Nealon developed and really carried on for several decades. I thought those were from an aesthetic and tradition sense were my favorite uniforms, and I thought we should have stayed with that. And I'm not into the whole mix and match thing, and I thought those uniforms on Saturday were hideous.
I have to say, I want to keep it going hard. I have to comment on that because I have an old friend at work, Mr. David Riley. Dave used to say to me, JT, that's not old gold and blue. That's not old gold and blue. So he was a traditionalist in terms of liking the old Mountaineer uniform. I'd have to agree with that. Now, what I'll say, I certainly understand what's going on, but I like that.
It's about the kids now.
Right.
I guess. They want all this different stuff, so that's what they get, I guess.
Yeah, I understand it, but when you come in here and you say you believe a Mountaineer old gold and blue, the old gold and blue, that's what I kind of think of.
Old gold and blue. And I don't care how you mix and match it, maybe a white uniform, but when you get into 4 or 5 different uniforms, which I think a few years back we literally had, maybe 4 or 5 uniforms, I think you're just doing a little bit too much. And I think that, it takes away from the game. When it comes down to it, you got to play the game between the lines. I don't care what you look like. I've always had a problem with the Miami Dolphins because of their colors. I felt like it made them play a little bit softer. I think the guys like down in Pittsburgh, that black and gold is something that makes you play a little bit tougher. So as long as we can make, we can set the ball in between the lines, worry more about the actual game than the uniform, I'm pretty much okay with what these guys wear.
A quick story in terms of how, my son and I both played here, right? So my son, one of these guys who has swag. That's the new word, right? I used to be the old lunch pail and bucket guy, Yep. There's a Mountaineer picture of me holding, holding my helmet on my pants, one of my thigh pads on the side, looking like I just, came out, of the construction site.
That's right.
So that's the kind of feeling that I have in terms of that old Mountaineer work ethic in terms of how we look. But I certainly understand that swag mentality, and I guess that's kind of where we are right now.
So I said, football is linebackers, fullbacks, and tight ends. If you're not doing inside, you don't have a football team.
I agree. Hopefully I answered your question. Thank you. Any other questions? We see it every day. Every day I'm usually, going to lunch and somebody asks me, what do I think about the Mountaineers? I'll mention one other thing, and you tell me if you guys knew this. A guy was telling me the other day at the office that the linemen got this new deal. They call it DBs in terms of stats. Have you guys heard of that, DBs?
No.
It is double blocks. Like linemen, because oftentimes linemen...
Defensive linemen.
Yeah, defensive linemen, yes. Oftentimes defensive linemen don't get the accolades in terms of tackles or, interceptions, anything like that. And hopefully this is true. But if there's such a thing, I would certainly endorse something like that in terms of when guys are able to get credit for getting double teamed. In fact, guys like Chris Neal, I think, made his living off being able to get the double block. John Thornton, Henry Slade, those are guys in my era that I know of. So, I was hoping that was going to kind of be a question about, credits in terms of double blocks or anything that had to do with some of these guys getting some of these accolades. Any other questions? Any other questions before we wrap this thing up? Well, guys, I want to thank you all for coming out. Certainly want to thank my guests, Gary Thompson and Alex Shook. I want to make sure that if you have any questions, make sure you send them to inthehuddle@thedeeppost.com. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, send them to me at inthehuddle@thedeeppost.com. Guys, I want to thank you for coming out, and I want to make sure you come here every Wednesday from 6 to 7 here at Saberton Station. And if you don't catch me here, as I always say, you can catch me online at thedeeppost.com. Until next time, huddle up.